Yeah, guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast with me, Pascal Floor, and on the other side, as always, Steve Hall, my man from London, and now a rainy city again. We are back to the usual, at least from what I heard so far. And yeah, it's been 2 weeks since we last seen each other because we recorded 2 episodes since the last time. I was on quote unquote a short holiday, which was actually really great. I will talk a little bit about it later on. But first and foremost, Steve, tell me a little bit about your past 2 weeks. What has happened? What was going on? Are you a little bit bigger? Are you a little bit smaller? Did you lose some muscle mass or did you gain some muscle mass?
So hopefully I'm bigger and definitely fatter and maybe a little bit more muscular as well, hopefully. So I had my overreaching week last week, and then this week just gone has been my deload. So just finishing that up now. And then going into another mass, which I kind of been on the edge of, like, I'm in that position where I'm not so fat that you would think I can't mass again, but I'm not lean really at all, that lean. So I could mini cut, but I kind of want to carry out some momentum, and I didn't include any kind of metabolite pumpy techniques in my last mesocycle, and I kind of want to do that. And I also want to get to a body weight I've just never got to before, so I'm kind of excited to do that.
That is like 195 or?
Yeah, so if I can push up to the mid 190s, that would be really big for me. That would be the biggest I've literally ever been. So I'm sitting around 190 now, some fluctuations up, but solidly 190. There's no kind of going below there. So that's really exciting. So that puts me just over 20 pounds above stage weight. I don't think I'll hit 200 pounds in this kind of mass with mini cuts. I think I'll hit that in the next round. If I do, it'll be like, I don't know. Can't even imagine how much I'll have to eat to get up to 200 pounds, like consistently eating that much. That's something I've definitely noticed. My appetite has just been poor. So,
and you're already sitting at around 4,000 calories, isn't it?
Yeah, just below there. It's surprising because I've eaten more than this before and not struggled that much. Oh. And it's kind of like, it isn't now the calories. And I'm kind of getting an understanding of why even like females eating maybe 2,500, or even like smaller males or even bigger males eating like 3,000 calories. You know, like, how are you struggling eating that much? And I think it's down to the fact it's all relative, isn't it? If you're near your upper set point or settling point, then your body's going to resist you eating more, so your appetite is going to be super low. It's not really the calories. It's like Alberto Nunez is starving on like 2,500 calories, whereas most of us are like, that's a decent amount to cut on. So yeah, it's been interesting going through that, but I just took actually this week during my deloads, every 3 months I'm going to get blood test and results. So I've only done that twice now. So I did get some done this week and I've had the results back, which I can talk about. There's some interesting things. And actually I haven't passed them by you at all, Pascal, and I'd love to hear your opinion on them. There was one really weird result, which I'll go over. And so I got those done, took circumference measurements. My waist and hips are definitely up by like a centimeter. I think something people need to realize is when you're more advanced, you actually end up gaining more percentage fat each time you mass than muscle. Because people like to think that you can gain them at like a 1-to-1 ratio, and that's really only when you're quite new to lifting, which is just a sad fact of what happens. Even I like to think I can gain more muscle than fat, but it doesn't happen. This is why your body fat percentage doesn't come down when you mass, because if you gain more muscle than fat, your body's fat percentage would come down. And that doesn't really tend to happen for anyone who's been lifting a while. So my arm, I think, stayed level. My calf was up like a centimeter. I always take a pinch of salt with all of these because there could be human error. My chest was level, but my quad, I think, was up a centimeter or so, which I was really happy with because I've just been pounding my legs.
So basically, you gained all the lower body things, and the upper body just stayed the same.
Apparently, but when I look at myself, I think the upper body's definitely improved as well, and my lifts have improved. So I'm pretty happy how progress has gone. I don't know if I want to go over my blood results now, or if you want to go over kind of how your holiday was, or I could go over it. I'm on a roll.
Do you think that is really the way to go? You know me, how much I tend to ramble and all that kind of stuff. So if we go down that road, we will probably stuck with that one. But yeah, I would just quickly touch on my holiday. It was the first holiday since I think 3 or 4 years. I can't even remember. Like where
proper holiday.
took a holiday, right? Where it wasn't like, so the last years I was always doing school or anything beside work, and you couldn't really take completely off, because when you had time off the school or something, you needed to do extra work for your job, because that was the time where you had the time to actually spend a little bit more time for that one. So it was the first time actually, and I was visiting my old hometown. So everything in that area, because it's quite small. So we were driving around to the northern seas, the Baltic Sea, just traveling around a little bit there. Super lovely, like super lovely. And I love that area. And when I was younger, or the time when I was growing up there, it's so funny because this time around, I realized and appreciated much more things that I didn't, or I wasn't aware of when I was younger, because I couldn't really appreciate something like the nature or the minor things, right? Because when you're young, you want to experience I don't know how to put it, the more less important things in life, such as celebrating, going out, doing party, going to bigger cities, right? And when you're a little bit older, such as I am now, because I also had a birthday on the 5th of August, you tend to appreciate more of the slower and maybe more important things. I'm not entirely certain whether it is important. For me personally, it is more important, right? And we were traveling around there, and I just love that area there in regards to the nature, the things we saw. But basically, the average age of the people who are doing holiday there is maybe up in the 50s and 60s. So we were kind of that young couple, which didn't fit in at all, but it was lovely actually. So now the last days of my holiday, next week is back again to work. So doing client updates. During that time, I still did a little bit of work and stuff, but it wasn't like doing client updates. And I had birthday, as already mentioned, and Katie, my girlfriend, and we spent a day out in the Spreewald, which is a little bit far out of Berlin. And as a birthday present, I got a Dodge Challenger, but it was only a rented car. I didn't get it as a present to keep it, but it was 24 hours. I got a Dodge Challenger. For all those who aren't aware, that is my car, basically, my most favorite car. And so we drove out to the Spreewald with that Dodge Challenger, and then we went out for a kayak tour there. Just lovely. I mean, that holiday was just like one of the best 2 weeks of the last 10 years or so. Amazing. So yeah, I'm really relaxed and couldn't be happier right now.
And actually, out of interest, I know the first week you were kind of taking as like an active recovery week. Did you train that week?
Actually, no, because I thought that I will have a hard time in actually doing that. But because we were so busy, we did so many things. And I'm quite appreciative of that fact that Katie is a person such as I am, who needs to go out and discover things and do things, right? And she herself says as well that in her friend's environment, or in her environment at all, she doesn't know any other person who's like that, who always wants to go out and experience new things, right? I'm super appreciative of that fact, because we were constantly out, constantly doing something, went out or left the apartment at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning and came back at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, right? Just went to the apartment, slept there, and that was everything. So it wasn't really a tough one for me not to stay out of the gym, because we were constantly busy. I think it would have been something else if it was some kind of a beach holiday where you are at a resort and all you do is lying at the beach or at the pool or something. But that's simply not me anyway. So that's what I did. And then the second week, so this week, I started then again to do a true maintenance phase, so a primer phase as we call it, just for 3 weeks. So this time a 3-to-1 paradigm. And then after that, I'm starting the cut. So the last episode, I was actually telling complete lies. I'm actually super sorry, but yeah. So the plan was actually to take a true maintenance now and then go into the cutting phase. And this is what I'm doing right now. And it's so funny because, man, it's such a completely different thing to work in the low rep ranges now. If you haven't done it for, I don't even know how long it is now, ever since I did that. But yeah, my performance is just going down the drain simply because of the change of schedule, change of sleeping routine, all these kind of things. And now also the change in my training protocol. But it's just a short-term decrease in my performance. It will come up again. And I mean, it's like I said already, what I've been doing before was nearly the perfect circumstances in regards to my sleep and recovery. So I can't really, it's not really surprising that it's now going down again. And you mentioned one good thing in the voice message to me, that you said that when you are coming to a more advanced level, if something like sleep or recovery isn't on point, then you feel the impacts immediately. When you're kind of a beginner, you can get away with messing up 1, 2, or 3 variables, but the closer you're getting to the higher or advanced levels, you have to take these things serious as well, because otherwise your performance will be negatively impacted.
No, totally. And yeah, it's crazy actually. Because I've been training legs on a Sunday, but every Saturday me and Charlotte go out and we end up walking a lot. And I'm kind of like, I need to hold our step back, like our steps back to be able to be fine.
Maybe you should get a wheelchair and Charlotte's driving you around.
That'd be so good.
Man, and you get some bonuses at the restaurants and, I don't know, amusement parks, right? You can skip the row and stuff. So
Charlotte can eat more, she's burning more, it's a workout.
Yeah, totally. So it's a win-win for everyone.
No, exactly. That's actually really, for my off-season, that's perfect. What was I going to say?
Getting better and better.
Also, when I found this with clients, because you haven't done one in a while, I bet by week 3, you'll be like, wow, like, I feel really strong again. And then you'll be like, oh, I'm deloading. Because at the moment, you're now bodybuilder, you're not powerlifter, and you're used to being strong as a powerlifter. Whereas when you're doing mesocycles as a powerlifter, you'd be more so potentiating towards strength, whereas right now you're potentiating towards mass. So you're coming from high volumes and going very low compared to that. So your repetition range, you haven't been stimulating as many fast twitch muscle fibers as you would have. You're just not set up well for it. So I'm not surprised that performance isn't where you would like it to be, and I don't think it matters.
No, and in the end, the power racks and the equipment is shitty as well. So that is my excuse as well. No, but in all honesty, the bench height and the squat racks height of it, both are just not made for me, right? I'm always like in between the setups where it's just like I have to either squat the bar out because it's so low, or when it's coming to the bench, I have to actually do a half pressing movement already, which is just, you can't really get into a proper position. Just wasting already so much energy on that one. But that's just kind of a bad excuse. But I mean, I want to bring it up as well.
And actually, that all resonates with what the topic will be later. I'll touch my blood work first, which will be self-coaching, which someone asked us about, kind of how do you coach yourself, maybe through a contest prep or just as an off-season or whatever it might be. And we'll touch on that because both me and Pascal coach ourselves, and we have done for quite a long time now. Pascal had a brief period with, actually you worked with Jeff for a while, kind of on and off. So yeah, we'll touch on that. But first of all, I'll just briefly go over my blood results. So the thing I was happiest with was that testosterone came from, it was sub 10 and it's now 16, which in the reference range is actually just above halfway, which is incredible to me. So I'm happy with that.
Cool. I mean, but this is basically what we've talked about in the past, when the first time you actually had blood tests, you were on a mini-cut, you were doing high volume work during that time when you took your blood tests. And this is what we discussed, that basically this could actually have an impact on you. And now you are probably at a higher body fat percentage. You are, I don't know, what week did you take it now, your testosterone? Maybe that had a big impact on that as well. But I'm super happy to hear that, mate.
Yeah, I'm happy. I never expected it to be. I don't think I've ever had a score that high. I think I was always around 10. So it's amazing to see it that high. It's a one-off, but it's a good indication. And I knew it would be higher. I already knew it would be. So it's telling me what I know, but it's nice to have that reinforcement.
And I think it's really valuable for the people to now have a real life scenario where they are seeing that you've been in that testosterone level, so under the normal physiological range, and now you're at the mid physiological range. So that just goes to show people how much it can vary from phase to phase, and also depending on your scenario.
And I think it's a good reasoning for like letting yourself gain, because I think that's why it's come up. It's like I've let myself actually get a bit fatter and feel healthier and all that good stuff. And it's not the same for everyone. Everyone doesn't have to. But if you're listening to this and you think it might be low or it is low, you might need to build your body fat up a little bit. And then the thing that was weird, everything else was pretty much in line to where I'd expect it to be, was my insulin, my fasting insulin levels. Now, last time, obviously, I always take them, like the blood tests are done first thing in the morning after like night of fasting, basically. Well, it's just first thing in the morning. So the time I did it before was during my mini cut, and my insulin was really low, as you'd probably expect because you're in a mini cut. So I think it was just below 4 or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. This time, you'd expect, okay, I'm high carb massing. Like the whole point of that partly is to have high insulin levels. I've been massing for a longer period of time, and my insulin levels were lower, and they were lower than 1. Which is like, they were nearly like close to 0, which to me just doesn't make any sense.
No.
I wish I could say more to this, but I can't because I don't know why. But I do have my HbA1c, which is like a longer term like insulin response. And that was in the range. And actually, I think it might have been a tad lower than even the time before. And so on the doctor's note, they were like, we're not concerned about this. But when you're that low in insulin, that's kind of like, I mean, that's super sensitive. That's like hypoglycemia. That's like having shakes and feeling lightheaded and having like sweats and stuff. And I haven't been feeling like that. Like, I think I'd know if that was it. So I don't know if that was wrong or if there's an explanation behind it. I've sent it across to Broderick. I will be consulting with him to just look over things. So it was just really strange to see that. And it kind of, whenever I get these blood tests, if there's something not quite right, it does hit you a little bit. Like I was like, but I want my insulin levels to be high. Like this is strange.
Oh, sorry for that. But yeah, I mean, once again, it's just an acute measure during that time. It could always be that it's just an outlier measure during that time, and basically when you have taken it like maybe 2 or 3 hours later, could have been completely different once again, right?
Yeah, I was considering even, I think you may even have one, because I know you were you were never actually diabetic, were you? It was kind of,
no,
you could have
pre-diabetic.
been pre-diabetic. Yeah. So, and that's high insulin levels, obviously, but you can get a blood glucose monitor. And I had never really considered getting one, but I'm just interested to see if I was to take it, just to see if it would change, because it just seems very strange to be that low. And it might give me some information about stuff. But I mean, for the most part, people, when you're listening to this, if you're healthy, you're feeling good, you're having good response to carbohydrate meals, you're lean and lifting, like you don't need to worry about this sort of thing. It's just because I've had the test and it looks a bit odd to me that I'm considering it.
But I mean, maybe you are someone who is quite insulin sensitive, and
that's less than 1 is. Like, that was out of their reference range as well, so it's a bit strange. But my HbA1c, which is more important, was in a good place. So.
Yeah, but you are lean, you are resistance trainer, who is most of the time then actually, this is basically the best thing you can do for your insulin sensitivity, doing resistance training. And I mean, you're doing a lot, doing twice a day training and stuff. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it was an outlier, maybe it is still close to that range, or maybe it was just like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's strange, but I think it might have been, but that's really all the blood tests. Everything else was pretty much normal. I thought it was interesting, my vitamin D didn't really change too much. It came up a little bit, and I had started supplementing with, I think, 62.5 UG. I'm not exactly sure, but I think that's pretty much what I've been supplementing with this my protein. Yeah, 62.5 mcg. Sorry, is what I've been having, and my. Didn't
you get enough during the summertime now in London?
So yes, I did, and that was my logic as well. That I was in reference range. Broderick actually likes to see vitamin D levels much higher than that. When I consulted with him, he was like, I think it might have even been, I might misquote him a little bit, like 4 times the reference range. He's happy to see it that high. And he said he's never even managed to get his that high despite supplementing with loads, which I think I would never suggest to someone, because you have to be careful, because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. You hold on to it, you can overdose, and it can cause some serious problems. So it's like, if you're in reference range, you're probably okay, but he was like, I would like to see your vitamin D a bit higher.
So I'm doing a little bit of a plug here, because in the recent issue of Mass, they're discussing vitamin D supplementation on performance output. And it was a quite interesting discussion. I don't want to disclose anything, because these people are doing a fantastic job. And I think that if people want to get the information, they should do the subscription for Mass, which you can find in the description below. There's a link that is an affiliate link. Full disclosure, right? But you're supporting us, and by the way, you are definitely supporting these guys, so Eric Helms, Mike Zuros, and Greg Knuckles, who are doing a fantastic job. And there is, in the latest issue, a discussion around vitamin D supplementation for performance enhancing. And
awesome. I need to check that out. I haven't actually caught up on Mass for a while. Just there's so much out there now. So but Mass is, if there is one to stick around and pay attention to, I think Mass is probably one of the best for people interested in physique development anyway. So that's really everything I had to say on that. I think nothing else to really report, apart from I need to program my next mesocycle, because I haven't done that yet. But it's basically just adding on top some metabolite pumpy stuff, which is going to be fun for upper body and torturous for lower body, because it just always is. I don't want. Last time I did this, I got my exertion headache, so I just don't want to program 3 sets of Bulgarian split squats into Smith machine squats. They would, that's what got it.
Totally.
Cool. Should we touch on? I guess the subject matter now is self-coaching. We were asked in our Facebook group. It was actually a really kind review of our segment within the package, the hypertrophy seminar package that we're selling on the website. The video footage from the seminar with Jared Feather and Mike Israetel. Again, plug, you can get hold of that. It's now available for you to go and download. So we did a presentation on kind of coaching and the importance of coaching, what data you want to collect, and how to individualize. And the guy who reviewed it said it was amazing, and they wanted to know more on how to self-coach, and how I coach myself through my contest prep, and how I guess me and Pascal also coach ourselves through our off-season. So I don't know if, Pascal, you want to touch on how you've been dealing with, ever since you kind of parted ways with Jeff, how you've been coaching yourself, what tools you've been using, how do you keep yourself progressing in the right direction, how do you make decisions, and then I guess what your thoughts are for your contest prep period, which is happening in a month.
Yeah, I think it's really hard. So first and foremost, to touch on the entire thing of self-coaching, I think it's really a tough one. I once heard Mike Teixeira actually talking about self-coaching as well, and even for him, and he's doing that since a long time, and he's coaching high level and world-class athletes, and even he himself has issues with self-coaching and being objective about your own approach and own training and nutritional programming. And I'm definitely not more advanced as someone like Mike Teixeira, and me myself, I'm struggling with a lot of things when it comes to that. But this challenge is for me the lovely thing about it, because I always like to be challenged and also try to experiment a little bit, try to see what is working for me. And when it comes to the programming tools I'm using, I like to keep it basic. So the thing, what I mean by that is I'm not fancying any kind of super programming tools such as I don't know, giant sets, supersets and stuff like that, because I always think that it's hard to keep track of them because, I mean, you have to be psychological in the same mindset. You have to maybe be in the same block, stuff like that. I'm not the biggest fan because I have a hard time actually tracking that for me personally appropriately, because I know myself. I have times where I'm a little bit more out of focus with training because I don't know, I'm emotionally impacted by anything. There's something else going on in my life because for me, I've always been doing something else at the side, right? And I have so many interests and so many things that draw my attention or catch my attention. And in that case, it's not different. And when it then comes to tracking the variables, I always find to have a hard time when I'm changing things up too often. I'm using too many fancy things. And that's why I try to stick with my programming for a long period of time and to see then, okay, what is working for me and what's not working for me. And I'm still need to find a way for me to make some more objective decisions. And I think that you especially can remember the time like last year after my contest prep, that I was always struggling finding one path or following one path. I was always like in the mindset of changing things up like on a weekly, bi-weekly or monthly basis, which is definitely not the thing to do. And probably if you are a coach yourself, something not what you don't do with any of your clients as well. So this is where you always said to me, okay, Pascal, put your coaching hat on and look at everything you're doing from a coaching perspective, as if you are a client of yours, right? And this is, I think, one of the most important things if you're coaching yourself that you have to take into consideration and always remind yourself, because it's so easy to get lost in that emotional state where you're just looking at your own progress. You may be looking into things that simply aren't there, such as I haven't done really any progress at all. And then when you really objectively look at the data in front of you, then you may see some indication that you have done some progress, maybe even some amazing progress, which isn't just hidden.
Yeah, I think the important thing you touched on there is if you are coaching yourself, you need to track. You still need to have tools available to you because you can't rely on if you're not good at this, then you need a coach maybe. This is why I said actually every single person I swear I coach is almost a coach themselves, or they could be a coach themselves because they're that intelligent. I think 75% of the people I'm coaching right now are a coach or a personal trainer. And I think part of the reason they outsource it to myself is they like having the accountability, they like having the confirmation that they're doing things correctly, and they like having that discussion, and they like to be able to focus on other things. And the big part of that I wanted to touch on was if you are coaching yourself, and I've fallen into this trap before, you need to keep yourself accountable to tracking elements. So like you need to have a somewhat idea of what your body composition is doing, whether that's girth measurements, photos, whether that's weight. I've gone through, and I'm really actually upset with myself. My last off season between 2014 to 17, I barely have any physique photos. I was really trying to get photos to compare my body weight now to then and look at my body composition and see what's improved, what hasn't, or whatever it might be. And I'm like, I have none. Like, I just didn't do it. And I think it's because I just went through the motions. And I think what you're talking about, the simplicity of program design and being able to track things and see what's working is excellent. And what I want to be cautious of people doing is just going through the motions. I think it's so easy to just go through the motions and just be like, oh yeah, this is my training plan, this is how much I eat. And it's like, well, actually having an overarching plan, which you did, I know you planned your entire off season, and having that to follow is so useful, because just having something to keep you accountable, having elements that you're tracking and being able to know whether something is working or not, and not just get complacent, because that's the worst thing you can fall into as someone who's coaching yourself, where you just actually end up spinning your wheels without even realizing it, and then it's like 3 months and you haven't made any progress and you're like, oh crap, I've been missing my macros, I haven't been weighing myself. And now when you weigh yourself and you track again and you're like, oh, I've actually been just not even maintaining, just literally maintaining. And I think that's the difficult thing. So I think if you are coach yourself, really important to track and keep yourself accountable. And if you're not good at that, that's when it's like, should you be coaching yourself? Because you might not have time to do it.
Man, there's so many good things I want to touch on. So first and foremost, the last point you've made, because I just wanted to actually, oh, my towel is falling down. I actually wanted to bring that up as well, that if you come to the point that you don't see any progress and you're not changing any variables, or you're not doing anything to actually then see some progress, be honest with yourself. Don't fall into that trap that you think that everything's running smoothly when it's not, right? It's the same when people come to you, ask for your advice because they are stagnating in their progression, and then you're saying like, have you tried this? Nah, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me. Have you ever tried that? No, but I rather do this. Okay, so you're telling me that you want to stick with what you're doing now, but you're not seeing any progression and you want to see progression. That's just pure insanity, right? Doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? And what I just want to say with that is admit to yourself, be really honest with yourself, because there's no point in cheating or lying to yourself. If you don't see the progression you like, or if you don't see any progression at all, and you don't know why, or you simply don't have the energy and willpower to change anything for your own programming, then source it out. There are plenty of other good coaches who look at your data objectively, and their best interest is to see you progress. It's actually basically that, right? And the other thing was that when you are self-coaching yourself, and you are a coach yourself, treat yourself like a client. And this is what I'm always trying to do with myself, that I try to log everything as if I'm a client of mine, basically. So I write everything down. When I experience some kind of a niggling pain, or the RERs, RPEs, the repetitions, the weights, all that kind of stuff, if I felt sluggish, I log everything into my spreadsheet as if there's a coach looking over it and is not in my skin or in my mind, right? That if you were to look over my spreadsheet, Steve, you could still get all the information you need to actually figure out what is going on. Because when you look at back at your spreadsheet 1 year from now, you probably won't remember how you really felt. And if you didn't note it down, the data can actually give you full indication of what was going on back in the days, right? So treat yourself as if you are a client, and if you will then look on your data as if that's your client as well, right? So log everything, basically. Require from yourself what you require from your clients as well in that scenario.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's fantastic. And I think, what was I going to say? Putting your coaching hat on is incredibly good just phrase to think about things, because I have had people who I've consulted with, and they like having control of things. So they like doing the nitty gritty of the detail of programming. They like having control of their nutrition, and they like to consult with me and talk over things. And sometimes in those consultations, have been like, but people fall for their bias or their preferences quite a lot, and they don't necessarily always do what they are required to do, and they more so do what they enjoy, and what they enjoy isn't always what they're required to do. And sometimes it's like in those consultations, I have to give them a kick up the arse and put them back in the right direction. And I think that is another solution to self-coaching, is either having consultations with people. So I consult with some kind of, I say like as if I do it a lot, but there's a couple of guys who I consult with who like every 3 months or so will check in with me and just want to know like how I think they're getting on, what their ideas are, and whether or not I would confirm that that's the right thing. I also agree with them. And I think that's a great solution for people who are self-coaching, to have that. And that's something I definitely used during my contest prep, where I was checking in with Jared now and then. So Jared Feather from Renaissance Periodization. I didn't have him coach me. I had more of I'm doing this. Do you think that's right? This has happened. what do you think of that? This is what I think. And it was just a nice dynamic of discussion. And the same, I actually did this with Pascal, and I continue to do it with Pascal. And I have some other friends within my network that I can do that with, and just have them in my circle and have them in my corner to just bounce ideas off. I even do it with Charlotte sometimes, and it's more of just me speaking through my thoughts rather than her giving me ideas. But yeah, I also consulted with Broderick during my contest prep for peak weeks and things. And that was really nice, and something I actually miss from having an actual hands-on coach that I think is really beneficial, and it actually made me really think to whether or not I'd want to get a coach, is just the, like, well done, just the congratulations, just like, you're doing awesome. That's so rewarding to have someone who you respect to tell you that. I can reference this as like when I was working in an office and did a job and had a manager, and I really miss having a manager now, because it was really nice having one-to-ones with them, and they're being like, so you did this, that's awesome, like, you're doing excellent work, Steve, like, you're doing everything I want you to be doing. And it's so nice to have that, and I love that we can provide that for our clients, and I miss it a little bit for myself. It's kind of a bit of a nice thing to have. And I think the only thing that helps me in that regard is I use social media a bit like that. So I get nice comments and feedback on social media, and that actually keeps me quite accountable, because I share my physique shots, I share my training, and I wouldn't share it if it was all going to shit, if it wasn't going well. And that would actually hurt me and hurt the business probably if it wasn't going in the right direction. So in a strange way, my circle keep me accountable. I don't think strange, but social media also. So you guys listen to this, you kind of keep me accountable. Like, I know I need to keep on track, keep on point if I want to kind of, walk the walk and talk the talk, and I want to be a good bodybuilder. So yeah, it's a bit strange because I actually had a consultation with someone recently, and he was like, so do you consult with someone? How do you keep on track during your off season? I'm like, you know what? Social media is actually a great tool for that. So yeah, I guess that's something in addition to the other comments we've made, self-coaching.
Totally. And I mean, I think to be blatantly honest here, I think you're doing a better job in self-coaching than I am. I can definitely improve on many regards, because many things you just talked about I am guilty of doing every once in a while. And I could be a little bit more meticulous with my own progress tracking of things, such as taking regularly pictures of myself, right? These kind of things as well. And it is important. It is really important. And this is something you would do as well when you have a coach, because he's just on the other end and saying, this is what I need you to do. Do that, right? And when you're coaching yourself, it's so easy to justify things, to say for yourself, this time, this is all right. Next week, I will do it so, right? Or when it comes to sticking with your macros, for example, dieting. Do I really have to diet now? When I look at myself, I'm not that fat. Come on. So I could bulk a little bit longer, right? And then you're spinning your wheels because you're going from one extreme to the next extreme, always swinging around without any kind of true intention and not really sticking with one specific goal. And that is kind of the risk that comes along with being or coaching yourself. Not having someone to be accountable for. And I think that this is one of the major things why so many people look out for another coach. It's not because of the knowledge. Many people, especially also our clients, many are coaches themselves, as you rightly pointed out. So, and they are great coaches and they are knowledgeable. I would even say that some perhaps know more than I do or you do, especially on different areas of life, right? Everyone has their own experiences and stuff. Everyone has their own specialties. And I would actually say that every once in a while you meet people or you coach people who don't necessarily need a coach for the reason of programming or something. But of course, when they value their time, then they can look out or outsource it to a coach, or if they seek for accountability. And I would even say that 90% or even 95% of the time when a coach applies to be coached, that they are only seeking for accountability, a new input, a discussion that is going on, and maybe even a little bit of a stress relief that they don't have to take off the programming themselves because they are busy or something, especially the offline coaches who are still doing one-to-one coaching on location. They have such a busy schedule. And I think that especially in that situation when they are programmed so often for different clients, they don't want to bother doing the programming for themselves, which they are giving out to other clients as well. One thing I wanted to talk about is, what do you want to add anything to that, what I've been saying?
The only thing I'd add is, I think definitely I completely agree. The only other thing I think a lot of people potentially sometimes come to us for is a new perspective sometimes, and also putting together what they've learned, because oftentimes people will come to us and they kind of know the principles, they know all of it, but they don't know how to put it into a cohesive plan. And then when I show them like the mesocycle, they're like, whoa, like that just puts all the pieces together and it just makes nice sense to them. So they learn a lot in a short period of time. So that's the only thing I'd add. Yeah,
I just wanted to talk about the biggest struggles you experience when you're coaching yourself, Steve. Let me just give you a little bit of perspective when it comes to me. And that is, right now I'm going through a phase where I see a performance decrease. And when it comes to something like that, you are getting into an emotional state because your progress is probably important to you, at least it is for me. And I'm there and I'm a little bit doubting the way I'm handling things, I'm doing things, and I would definitely want to change something. But I also know objectively that sticking with things might be a better idea in that regard. And on a short term, things can always change and go downhill, right? But when you see that you're not making the biggest jumps forward, or your progress is so slow that you yourself as an emotional individual can't really decipher that, whether you are making progress or not. I find that this is one of the biggest struggles for me, at least when it comes to your data yourself, when you are already in that state of self-coaching, to stay on track when things aren't going as planned and aren't going as you would like to see them going, that then being still motivated, staying on track, being calm and all that kind of stuff, and not being demotivated, because most of the time your mental state will probably then carry over to your training program once again, and it's kind of ending up being a vicious cycle.
No, I completely agree. And I was actually going to say, I should have said before, in addition to the points of which the thing I do most as a coach for clients, I feel, isn't the education, isn't teaching them loads of new things. It's getting them to stick to what they've been doing and not make frequent changes. The number of times I have clients reach out to me and be like, my scale weight jumped up 2 pounds this day, and I'm like, look at the week average, what's that doing? Or I think we should make a change, this isn't going quite how I want it to. I'm like, no, stick it out, it's what we should be doing. It's quite often it's just kind of nudging them to stay to what they are doing and not kind of do different and change different things. And that's something I struggle with as well. And I know I've talked to you about it before, especially in deload weeks. Quite often you've said this, where I seem to have much more time on my hands. It hasn't actually happened this deload. I've had no time, I don't know why, which has kind of been good. But maybe I'll hear something new, I'll hear a new perspective, and sometimes it actually creates me some anxiety of whether I'm doing the right thing. And something I've actually found that's very much helped me, and I think there's a careful balance between it, but I've closed people off of my circle who I don't think hold similar perspectives to me, not necessarily perspectives, but they're doing things that I just know aren't what I should be doing. And when I look at what they're doing and I get tempted to stray the course, it causes me anxiety to whether what I'm doing is great. And I know what I'm doing is working, and actually by just ignoring what they're doing and putting them out of my mind is helping me.
Steve,
that's something I have done. Just
so that the listeners don't get a wrong idea of what you're talking about. So you're not saying that you are black and white thinking or narrow-minded, that you're saying only this way and only the things I know now are the ones I know work. you're not disregarding the fact that there might be other theories and ideas out there that may work or may not work, but you were saying that the things that seem to be from the scientific literature and from personal experience from your end doesn't seem to provide as much of a benefit or even no benefit at all are the ones that you try to push to the side. Is it what you're saying there?
100%. I'm by no means saying that I'm trying to be dogmatic and I kind of am closing out people from my circle and just ignoring other perspectives. It's more of a case of not focusing too much on those other perspectives and focusing more on my own progress and what I'm doing rather than focusing on what other people are doing so much. I think sometimes people can end up, and I find it with clients as well, they focus so much on what everyone else is doing and that worries them that they're doing something wrong. And I'm just saying, just sometimes gather yourself, focus more on what you're doing. It's very much like in a business sense. People often get worried about like what everyone else is doing, and it's like, no, just focus on what you're doing and make sure you're providing your clients with progress and you're providing good content to your audience rather than focusing on what everyone else is doing, because it doesn't always help you.
And I think that when it comes to programming and trying to optimize things, I think when you have like 70 or 80% of the fundamental basics covered, you should see some progress.
Always no matter what you yourself do. Of that.
You don't have to do the fancy things. I mean, when you aren't doing anything stupid or that is really just like super weird, and you're just training, going in and train, and you are fueling your body accordingly to what your goals are, then I think that you will see some progress. It takes time, and muscle gain takes time, and I think that people most of the time get really impatient, especially in the day of age of social media where the time spent is low anyway, and you want to see the results now and you want to have everything now and you can't really wait any longer anymore. Just take a look at the studies, for example, where newbies are actually seeing some gains, and then just take at the millimeters of muscle size they are gaining. It's not like when they are gaining a couple of pounds that the muscle tissue size is like a couple of centimeters. We are speaking about millimeters of gains, right? And this is something people most of the time overlook or maybe haven't ever heard of, that the muscle gain size is basically always just millimeters. And this is something you simply can't see from a visual perspective when you are in one gaining phase or went through two gaining phases. Yes, you're gaining size, but most of the time it is due to the volume and size of the fat tissue, the water retention, maybe full glycogen stores, all that kind of stuff, right? But the fullness effect isn't that telling you that you gained 5 centimeters of chest size or anything, right? When it comes then to trusting the process, and that is basically the point I'm trying to make, is when you are not in your first year of lifting, most of the time you need to just trust the process, trust that you are doing these 70 to 80% of the fundamental basics right, and everything on top of that is just like experimental stuff, right, that may be beneficial or may not add anything to your gains overall. But when you're going in there and train, you will probably see some progress over the next couple of 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And first then, after like 10, 15 years, you can truly see some amazing changes visually.
No, 100%. I think the trust in the process, it almost, to some of the listeners who have been listening the entire way, thank you. It might sound contradictory somewhat, where we're saying trust the process, but don't get complacent. You must track and monitor things. That like they might seem contradictory in that you're trusting the process, but why are you checking things all the time? It's kind of like there's a careful balance. You need to set things, make sure you've put in all the right ingredients, let it go, and then check it now and then. It's kind of like when you're trying to follow a map, you don't just kind of just go. You kind of have, I don't know, you check your petrol, you make sure like that you're going along the right path. It's the most efficient route, or if there's like a blockade or something, kind of you make sure you're going along the route the right way. But most of the time you're just driving. I think there's a careful kind of trust the process, but now and then check that process is going along how you want it to.
I had a different analogy to that one. I would have come up with the stock market. When you're investing into stocks, you're not just putting the money there and then you're just trusting the process that it's going up. No, every once in a while you are checking the market, whether it is going down or upwards, so that you can actually take or make the appropriate adjustment when the time is needed. And other than that, you are just leaving it there when it's hopefully going the way you intend to, and that is always going upwards.
And I think it might be useful for the listeners to have an example of where a client of mine, I've been coaching him for more than 6 months now, and from start to where he is now is huge. The progress he's made is amazing. He's always been very smart, well educated, and he knows what to do now going forward. His problem is that he can't do what he needs to do. And my job, for the most part, is what we've already said, is to keep him on the right path, because there was a couple of weeks where he was like, I think I can actually take the rein and I can do this myself. And I was like, I think you probably can. Like, I'm trying to encourage that, because that's what we want for our clients, for them to be able to coach themselves. And then there was a week where the scale weight didn't go how he wanted to and things weren't quite right. And he kind of freaked out a little bit, and I had to really rein him in. And he was like, Steve, there's no way I can coach myself at the moment if I'm going to have reactions like this, because that can send you in the wrong direction. So if you know that you're that type of person, then having someone to guide you is a really good idea, because you could be just completely self-sabotaging.
Yeah, and on top of this one, I would also mention that you don't have to be afraid of actually working together with a coach. That doesn't make you less hardcore or anything like that, because I have the feeling that some people are in the mindset of, I have to coach myself because that is, I'm in control of everything, and that makes me hardcore because I'm the judge of my own life. I don't let anyone tell me what to do and stuff like that. That's not the way it is. I mean, these people, just take a look at education, right? There's a mentor or there's a teacher who went through all of this himself. He learned all this stuff, and now he gives his experience and the new research and the things he learned in the past now to you, so that you have even more knowledge to base off from, and then you can give it to the next generation yourself, right? And you can learn so much, and you can take so much more away from a coach. And me myself, I would love to actually work with a coach again. It's not that I picked or choose to do self-coaching simply because I can't. I just love it or something. There are some benefits to it that allow me to actually make the adjustments right away when I deem them appropriate. This can be detrimental as well. Don't get that wrong. And I love to be in full control over everything. And I'm kind of a control freak. But that doesn't mean that it's good to not have a coach. I would like to have one, but I also know that when it comes to picking a coach, don't just pick a coach because you see someone on Instagram which physique you like. Do your research and find one that actually also suits your personality. You get along with that person as well, because coaching is so much more a personal interaction than it is just spitting out the numbers and here it is what I want you to do, and that's basically it. I don't think it's a hierarchy. I think it's a team play, and for me, I haven't found that coach yet, unfortunately. That doesn't mean that I couldn't get along with Jeff. I did, but it was just not the combination of what I needed, right, and also from that personal perspective. And until now, I haven't really found one who I would feel comfortable of me coaching.
Yeah, I think just to agree, for myself, I've really enjoyed self-coaching, but I think I would love to have a coach. It's just finding that person that is your coach. And I've had clients who have come from highly respected coaches who I respect, and they've come and been trained by me, and it seems like I might be that person for them, which is amazing. But they've gone through, it's kind of like the female who has to kiss a lot of frogs before they find their prince. This sometimes happens, and I'm kind of holding back to just find the prince, I'm hoping, rather than having to kiss any frogs, because I'm happy right now that I could be my prince. And I think something that the listeners might not have, that we definitely do have, Pascal, is we just do have a network. I have people that I can reach out to who I respect massively, who maybe don't coach, example Mike Israetel, and I know he'll be able to give me a hand if I require that, which is what most people can't do. And likewise, I can reach out to Pascal and send him across some ideas, and he will be able to get back to me. A lot of people don't have that, and that's kind of a real benefit for us. But that means a lot of people can't self-coach in the same way.
No, totally. And this is also something I always tell my clients, that it is a discussion about everything. I'm not just giving a training program to them and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and and you don't have any word to say in that one. They can look over everything, and then they can come back to me and say, okay, this isn't something I can do or I want to do simply because of X, Y, and Z. And I get back to them with a explanation why I thought this might be appropriate, whether I think we should stick with that. And if then eventually the person decides that we should throw that away or do something completely else, absolutely fine. There's no one way fits all, and there's not one single thing you have to do. There are so many other variables and all other variations you can throw in. So it should always be a discussion about things. And if you're not having someone at your side you can throw things at, or you have to also shit test yourself in these regards. Having a coach at your side is just beneficial, to throw ideas at, or to ask why the programming or the way they program is a good idea, or why they did things the way they did. You can always learn something away or take something away from a coaching experience, and you are not just paying for the program. Hopefully you're not. If you do, drop that coach. I mean, I don't know if that's an appropriate recommendation, but I think that for me, in my understanding, having a coach at your side is way more than just a program, way more than just giving you the macros. It should be also along with an explanation, the reasoning behind why the program is constructed the way it is, also a personal perspective, then a back and forth, that you have the feeling that you are appreciated, and also that you are heard when you have some problems or issues, or when things are going good as well.
No, 100%. I think that is the art of coaching, and that is what a lot of our discussion was about, how we collect all this data, we have this communication, and it was kind of the collection of data along with communication, that together can create individualization, which eventually can lead to being more optimal over time, which is exactly what coaching is about. And you can do the same with self-coaching, but you have to be able to communicate with either yourself or someone else around you and be able to collect data. And I think there needs to be a prerequisite of education, because there are some people that can't be trusted to program and do all these things for themselves. So that needs to be taken into consideration as well. But
yeah, before we're closing now, because I think we're coming up on time now.
Pretty much.
You didn't really tell me about your struggles when it comes to coaching yourself. So what do you find the biggest struggles for you are?
So I think I alluded to it, at least. I might have not named it as my biggest struggle. It is the seeing other perspectives and then self-doubt. That's my biggest one. And so I think the best thing I found with that, and this is something I think I do for a lot of my own clients, is confirmation. So reaching out to someone I trust and being like, this is what I'm doing, like this is right? And it's that shit testing that we do with one another. And sometimes not letting these other people cloud my judgment when I know what I'm doing is the right thing for me right now. It is that self-doubt. And I think that holds people back all the time, because they self-sabotage, because they're kind of not convinced themselves. And I think sometimes you just need confidence. And if you don't have that, then you're constantly going to be one of those people that are like chasing what they're seeing, and they're thinking this is better or that's better. And it's like, well, you need to follow something through and have confidence with that and actually see it out. So yeah, self-doubt is my biggest.
No, absolutely. Yeah, cool. Dan, I think
Superb.
we covered a lot of things. I have the feeling that we missed something, but
I think we probably did.
If we didn't cover all of the questions you guys had, put it in the comment section below here on YouTube. Otherwise, we have our Revive Stronger Facebook group where you can post the questions as well. I'm now back from a holiday, so I need to get a little bit more active in there as well. And that's definitely going to happen, right?
We love, actually, I really enjoy the suggestions people have for us or the questions, because then it allows us to have these productive discussions and saves us from talking about something people don't want to hear. And I think this has actually been really valuable. I don't know if it would be good. Do you think it would be good to summarize, like, if you're going to self-coach, you need to have, or for us to self-coach effectively, we need to have these things in check?
Sure, go ahead.
So off the top of my head, I'm thinking you need to have a background of education. You need to be knowledgeable in what you're doing so you can actually program effectively. Have data collection and keep consistent with that. And then I think only really 3 main things. Have a support network of people to be able to bullshit test you. So long as you have those 3. I have
a 4th one, and that is staying objective, but also emotional when it's appropriate. So switching between being an athlete and being a coach.
Perfect. Put that coaching hat on. Right. Should we, I don't think we want anything to plug or suggest. We've already made the plug, so we're all good.
Totally.
We'll catch you guys soon. Thank you all for your comments, likes, and screenshots and shares over on Instagram. We appreciate it all.
Totally. Cheers.